Morning, afternoon.
Hi, can you hear me, Ruth?
I can. You're happening, yeah.
Good, and you're happening too.
Yay! Good start.
Did you
Hi, Jenny.
did you look into that MISA Zoom discussion thing after the?
I was going to, but then I kind of felt it wasn't my place.
Yeah, I sort of looked in and then looked out again, and I apologise for Alison for sort of popping up and up. Then I suddenly thought it was all about the artist, really, and
yeah, exactly. That's what I kind of felt. Was it good? Was it interesting? Or
well, actually, I was having awful trouble with my new phone, and I had an Apple callback came, and I thought that in the end took precedence because I had to get my phone sorted out. But they were really talking about their own personal development and stuff. It was Botis Siva when it was on when I was, and I thought, I just really enjoyed seeing the films, and so that was.
Yeah, yours was lovely. I mean, Willie's was lovely too. They were all lovely. I think
they all work really well. I'm not usually quite that breathless, but it just didn't.
You got in so much, though. It was beautiful. It didn't come across as breathless.
I think what was really nice was that actually each film was entirely different, and that was just
yeah.
So it was,
what was that for, Julia?
We did something called the MISA Film Festival, East London Dance. We were contacted, and it was 3 short 5-minute dance films by 3 young their first work, and so we had to work with them, and it was great because it was lovely that we were in and got a lot out of it.
How was the audio description done? Could everybody hear it?
We did it. They did a festival launch for their films on Saturday. I guess it's probably still on YouTube, and you could either watch the films with the AD or without. It was an option there. Yeah. So it was, and how was it like, Anne? I saw your pictures being back in the theatre.
I'm so excited.
How long? Where was it exactly? You said it's home.
It's called Home Manchester. It's
did you do the Rash Dash show?
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. I just want to see it.
They're
so brilliant, aren't they?
So clever. Their voices are just amazing.
I used to be in Abby, who's the very pregnant redhead. I used to be in youth theatre with her, and she's like by far the most kind of successful and enviable person that's come out of our youth theatre days. We're all like, we just want to be her. She's amazing.
Yeah. She's about to pop, isn't she? I think the technicians were worried that she would have the baby before the end of the runs.
Part of the thrill.
Yeah, it was just lovely being back in the theatre, and we had one guy and his partner who came, so all credit to them for braving it out there into the world. But it's all very well organised there. They're what we used to call an arts centre, where they have a cinema and theatre and an art gallery as well. So yeah.
And Jonathan's doing some live AD at Hippodrome, he's guiding people around their Van Gogh Alive. Show. So he's written a sort of AD, and he's doing a live AD for it, which is great. So
good. Ooh, it's exciting when things start to happen.
Yeah, the play that goes wrong is coming back. That's opening in the West End.
Yeah, just saw your message about that. That's good.
So exciting. 6 is open, and things are open. Yeah. And you've got more bookings for next year. Yeah.
I've got 3 Christmas carols so far and a circus carol as well. So yeah. Be nice.
I've had the Birmingham rep have been on to me about next spring, so that's good.
Good.
So
Brilliant.
they've got their money. So.
Yeah, I think we will be down on audiences because quite a few people have said to me, oh, well,
Yeah.
I still don't go. And then one woman's messaged me and she said, well, I can't come unless the one person in my bubble is prepared to come with me. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Hi, Paula. Hi, Paula. It's Jenny here.
Hi, Paula.
oh, are you there?
Hello, Paula. Ruth here.
Is she frozen?
No, I've
No,
actually
that's-
realised that Paula's got a picture up and she's not frozen. That's just a still picture because otherwise she's managing to stay incredibly still. God.
Yeah, the first time I met somebody in real life after all this was happening, we both every now and then used to sort of just what's it called when you just freeze, because otherwise it felt a bit weird that we kept moving. You know, every now and then we just go and buffer. You know.
Yeah. Hello, Neil.
Hi everyone, how are you?
Neil. Okay.
Good.
Great news, Anne, that you're back in the real world.
Yeah,
Yes, fantastic.
it was very exciting. Very exciting. I was like a little girl going to playgroup or something. Got my
Yeah.
face and everything.
Clean hanky,
Yeah.
lunchbox.
Water bottle, hanky, keys, mask,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
I looked in my the bag I always take with me when I'm describing the other day, and it was like opening a time capsule.
Weird. Yeah,
I still haven't got rid of the things in my diary, so they keep sailing past me, the things I'm not describing. So
Yeah.
I can't bear to rub them out. It's ridiculous.
I know.
no, I still get alerts for them all the time. I just find it really interesting to see where I would have been in this parallel universe.
Yes.
Yes.
I never wipe anything. I'm still getting meeting reminders for the university, which I retired from 2.5 years ago. I just like to know they're still having the meetings. You know?
I see somewhere. Just not here in lockdown.
Well, it is for you.
Well, yeah. So far, so good. As long as I don't get ill, we'll be all right.
Yeah, try not to. That'd be good.
I know.
No, it's not the being ill that's the problem, it's being near somebody who is ill.
Yeah.
I think is the worst bit. I've got a technician at the moment who's in isolation until next Friday and has been in isolation since last weekend. So she's coming up to halfway through the fortnight. And she's been tested and she's clear. But the isolation order says next Friday. So she's I think people are stuck at home, you know, for good reason, and I'm sure she is as well. But it's I think from a mental health point of view, you know, she's really struggling because she's really bored. She's stuck in one room at home, and she's not ill either. So it's a real.
That can happen to you
struggle.
over and over and over again every time
Yeah.
you come into contact with someone.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think in our business as well, because we're so. I mean, obviously not at the moment, but as things start to open up, there's so many kind of cross bubble, isn't there? This person to that person, and then they go to there, and then they've come from here, and before you know it. But yes, it has been cheering to see your photos this weekend, Dan, and to see that things are happening, and from a venue point of view as well. The last fortnight has really felt like the industry is moving or starting to move again.
That's wonderful. How are things in your neck of the woods, Neil?
Yeah, we're doing okay. Wolverhampton is in tier 2, so that's where we are. But as we hadn't reopened, we hadn't. You know, it doesn't really affect us at the moment. We've got teaching in, so students are coming in and using the space. And I've spent an hour and a half talking to the unions this morning in the hope we can bring some other people in, which is looking good. But I suppose what's really boosted this part of the country over the last 2 weeks is all the investment, and we've been incredibly, you know, well serviced by the recovery funds. And while it isn't, you know, it's still from a national point of view, it's not enough. They've certainly invested very heavily in our region. So in Wolverhampton itself, there's only the independent cinema waiting to hear now, because they're in a different fund, because cinemas are in a different pot of money. But everyone has had some funding, all of the major players. So ourselves, New Hampton Arts Centre, Black Country Touring, if you guys know them. Yeah, and then the Grand got a big chunk this weekend. So yeah, the region seems to have been very well looked after. Certainly, of the 35 that they announced on Saturday morning, 10 or so were in Birmingham and the Black Country. So so that's really good to see, actually, and it shows some faith in what's going on, and in those organisations. And I don't think, looking at the lists for the funds that have been distributed so far, there's that much surprise in the lists. I think there's a couple that have been given big chunks of money where you think, that's interesting, but I don't think there's many people missing who you would expect to see on those lists. I think certainly when we looked at the Midlands list. Say again, Julia, sorry.
Belgrade got something.
Yeah, Belgrade's got something. Certainly across Birmingham, pretty much everywhere. The people that don't seem to have had much of anything at the moment, and it doesn't seem that surprising, the kind of ATG group, and that's whether they've gone in for the money. We don't know. You never know who's bid. But again, that would seem to fit with their model that, it's a very hard argument to use public funding for those kind of organisations, I think. So it's, as I say, there's not been many surprises. There's been a couple of surprises of, that much money's gone there, has it? But not too many surprises in the, I thought they would have got some money, or I thought they feel like they've been missed out. A few places. I think the most surprising one I saw was the Frog and Bucket in Manchester, and the comedy club there, which seemed to have fallen between the cracks of, they probably didn't do a particularly good job of identifying their significance. I would suggest probably more lack of experience in writing bids than anything else, because unfortunately they got that response, which it's a very Treasury response, I think, rather than an Arts Council response. The response of not culturally significant. That comes out of page 1 of the Tory phrase book, doesn't it? For kind of tone deafness after what's going on. So anyway, it's nice to see you all here.
It begs the question how that pot of money is going to be allocated, where it's going to go.
Yeah.
My husband just met with an old friend who's a technician down at Salisbury, who lost his job and is now being employed freelance to do the same work because nobody has the skills. But of course, like many theatres, they've got such a huge base of admin in the back rooms, but that money's got to be channeled into putting on good productions that people will want to come and see. It's not going to be straightforward, I would think.
No, and that's certainly what we're looking at.
Well, having a pot of money, but
it's interesting to see the way it's been administered, from a recipient point of view. So we get 90% of it now, and the final 10% on completion. And I don't know how much you're aware, but the funding runs from 1st of October to the 31st of March. So all the delivery has to be in that period of time. But there's certainly a focus on...
Are you completing set tasks, or is it on completing your survival?
Hard to say. I mean, it's probably the most significant document in terms of terms and conditions I've ever seen attached to funding which has come through the Arts Council. It's about a 24-page document of terms and conditions, and you don't get that for an MPO agreement. An MPO agreement is normally 2 pages. So there does seem to be a little bit more certainly everything financially has to be reported, which is not normal, for certainly not specificity. Our overall finances get reported to the Arts Council, but they don't want to see this is specifically what we spent MPO money on and this is what we spent our own money on. They don't really care. And this one does. I've got to literally itemize the spend. So that's unusual for, say, for a fund coming through the Arts Council. And yeah, it's very clear that you have to deliver what you said you would deliver in your bid, which meant I rapidly went off and read the bid because I'd written it 4 weeks earlier, and we didn't think we were going to get it, to be honest. That was we had no intention of, we just didn't think we'd get anywhere near it. So I'd sort of forgotten about it. Unfortunately, I kept my bid fairly vague. So I think, yeah, we know we're installing some equipment, and the rest is box office subsidy is basically how I've described it. So hopefully it will balance the books. And I suspect it's more, as often with these, it's those checks and measures are for the bigger venues, the more significant investments. You know, I don't think they're going to quibble with us over £50,000, but I think they're going to want to look quite specifically at how, you know, venues are spending 1 to 3 million.
As they should.
Absolutely.
What happens if, hi everyone, what happens if we, what's concerning me, because I gather from the two theatres that I'm involved with who have been given some funding, that they've really got to get going and they've got to prove that they can put things on now, as it were, and they're all rushing to get things on, regardless of what is happening in the outside world at the moment. What's going to happen if, as may well happen, in a few weeks' time, everything shuts down again? Can you put these grants on pause? Will that be taken into consideration? Because theatre's not like an office. You know, it takes weeks to do a production, and if you have to halt that production, you can't just pick it up like that. You've got to, you know, you've still got weeks to go. If you had to stop at 2 out of 6 weeks, you've still got 4 weeks to go. And if we have to shut down again, which is my concern that it might happen, off and on between now and Christmas and beyond, till the end of March, what happens then? Do you have to give the money back, or will they roll it over, or?
I mean, you'll be unsurprised to hear there's
You don't
nothing.
know.
There's nothing in there about that. I mean, it's,
No.
you know, it's not in at all. Again, I think it depends on what you've said. So it would, from what people I've spoken to, you're absolutely right. Those people who have put specific productions in their bids have now got to crack on with making those productions. And so we didn't really itemize anything in particular. And I'd love to say that was for exactly that reason, but it was just fluke. You know, so
I know a theatre that hasn't done that, an amateur theatre who's got funding, because they're quite large in our area, and they of course can't financially do the COVID precautions that other theatres are doing. Like, you know, if they do 2 productions a day, they're spraying it, deep cleaning it in between, all this sort of thing. They have neither the personnel nor the funding to do that, but they're going to do their best to be COVID secure. But they've got to start straight away. And of course, they can't put their actors in bubbles because their actors are actually at work.
Yeah.
You know, come out in the evenings. So it's all very difficult as to know how safe it's going to be.
It really is.
What happens to the money if, where are we now? Almost the beginning of November. If in 3 or 4 weeks' time, the hospitals are so overrun that's it, we all have to shut down again.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing concern. I think that's why a lot of people have bid for core costs, you know, for you know, either box office recovery or you know, you could put in for staffing costs, you could put in for you know, maintenance, rent, those kind of things. And I think that's where a lot of people have gone. Is that the Little that you were talking about? Yeah, because I was having a look at what they were doing, and I was having a conversation with the Crescent in Birmingham, which has a very similar model to the Little. And yeah, it's really challenging. You know,
we've a difficult situation. I mean, a personal situation, which is quite actually interesting. My husband was about to do a play, a 2-hander there, And the director gets hold of him and says, are you still willing to do this? Well, of course he's willing and eager to do it. And then he looked at me and said, I could bring it home to you. So we now have this dilemma, a marital dilemma. Does he do this? And I said, let's see what the score is first. Let's answer all the questions. But it is difficult because you can't, like at Curves involved in their issue, we'll rehearse separately and then they will come together for a week and they have to be in a bubble for a week, which means they have to self-isolate for 2 weeks and then self-isolate for 2 weeks afterwards. And then they'll do the show for 2 weeks. People who aren't being paid to be in theatre can't do that. So I don't quite know how it's going to work out for some of these theatres.
No, and I think the amateur sector is really struggling for all those reasons, and that we know, all sorts of venues. In fact, a lot of venues rely on the amateur companies to pay some bills by hiring the spaces, and we've not even looked yet at how we might start getting amateur companies back in. It's a headache enough trying to get professionals through risk assessment processes here, just to get them ready for bringing professional companies back in. Amateur companies is a real challenge, and like I say, December really do anything in December. We hire out to companies, and that's a huge income driver for us. And we've got nothing this year. We just won't be having any of those shows, and so again, that's partly what we've highlighted in our bid. Is that's what we're looking for. And then I think, as with everything, you start to see the innovation. So the Crescent put a show out last week before, Foxfinder. They did live from the theatre via stream, and it was really good and well put together. But as often with the Crescent, I know the Little slightly different actually, but with the Crescent, a very young cast, and they bubbled for a couple of weeks to make that happen, partly because they're all theatre people and they haven't got any work at the moment, so it was easy to do. But then it was interesting to hear the kind of professional side of things. My technical manager is freelance as well, and was up working at the Hope Mill last week on Rent, and having this kind of inside story of how they're running that project. Steve going on site for 3 days as company electrician, having COVID tests every morning, which are being paid for privately, and are being done. The entire cast is in a bubble, and they've hired a house for the duration so they can all live together. And somebody rang me last week actually for some advice on how we were doing things at the arena and how we saw things going in the future. And I actually sent him off to one of the producers of Strictly Come Dancing, because they're doing similar kind of management of people, and how do you keep these kind of people together. For us, we made a really easy decision. All the shows that I'm doing live in the theatre this side of Christmas are solo shows. That makes it a lot easier. I've only got to worry about one person. They can bubble on their own. That's much easier. But yeah, it's huge challenges for organisations, and I think I think there was it was an interesting funding round to be part of, because when we bid, it was a complete opposite of the usual bidding process. And I think I said this maybe at the AGM actually. It was a process where you were bidding negatively. Normally when you bid for something, it's always optimistic, isn't it? We'll do this, it'll be brilliant, we're going to do this, it's going to be fantastic, we're going to engage with these people, we're going to have this impact on our community, we're going to do this, that and the other. And this bidding process was more like, help us, or we won't be here anymore. And that was a very kind of stark thing to do, I think. And then I think when the money came through, again, normally when the money comes through, there's a kind of sense of congratulation and excitement and celebration, and it was just relief. Everybody just saying it's just relieved. And we know that a couple of people said in the press and other places, it just kicks the can down the road for another 3 or 4 months, and just means that those scary conversations might get put off a little bit more. And but what I think is happening, and this is evident from things that are going on at the moment, is how many people are using the money to invest in online. And we've now been, so we were ready to go on our project before the bid got in the way, and we were being told 2 weeks delivery time on the cameras that we're buying to install, and obviously we waited till we got the bid because of sensible reasons, and then we got it, and the order has now gone in, and we're being told 8 weeks minimum to get the exact same cameras in. So if anybody's got a share in Blackmagic or can get a share in Blackmagic, their stock is going through the roof at the moment, because they're overwhelmed to get this equipment out. So I think there's going to be a huge surge in online work over the next few months, and we can already see that. You can already see that out there, but it's picking up like it feels like every day now I'm being advertised something else, which is online. And Nottingham Playhouse reopened last week, I think, with online as well as in person, and the Rep is now back in Birmingham, and yeah, I think there's going to be a real surge. So we'd got a couple of things that we wanted to throw out to the group today. One was a little bit of an update, although a sort of non-update, on what things we've talked about around getting a sort of accepted set of risk assessments and guidelines together. There's been some progress, or some intention to progress at least, that myself, Anne, and Matthew at Vocalise are now in conversation about making this happen. But the complicated bit is finding a time in the diary where we can all meet, and Matthew wants Michael from Vocalise to be involved as well, and he's still on furlough at the moment, so he's got to bring him back in for a day. But we are starting to progress on that, and hopefully we'll have that out in the next few weeks. I think most of actually what we're looking at exists. We just need to pull it together and run it through some sensible eyes, and hopefully we'll be able to make that available sooner rather than later. Yeah, we've just got to find a time in the diary when, which is lovely, when we're not all working on busy, exciting things.
Did Matthew say that November the 1st was when a lot of people were back in the Vocalise office?
Yeah, the furlough scheme as it stands ends on the 31st of October. So I think those people that are, rightly using it to its max are keeping everybody out until the end of, the end of this week, isn't it? It'll be next week. I suppose most people will be back in. And obviously, again, as everything gets busy, which is, I understand, is a relative term, but compared to what we've done over the last 6 months, it's got very busy. Matthew's getting busier as well, I think, from Vocalise, and there's the demand is starting to rise again. So hopefully we'll have something on its way in the not too distant future. But Jenny and I had a chat on one day last week. They all blur into one, don't they, when you're sitting in your little boxes? But we know, and I'm sure you're all aware, we haven't done any professional development work from Ada over the last I suppose getting on for 12 months now. We had a great session planned for Milton Keynes in March, which got COVIDed out. And obviously we've done these sessions, but nothing sort of very formal. Obviously, just make sure everyone's on the same page and up to date. But Jenny was elected to the executive committee at the AGM, and with an interest in taking over the work that Emily Mallon was doing before, and is sort of keen to get those things moving again. So it was open for a discussion really about what you think the priorities are, what you would like more help and guidance around, whether you've done training elsewhere that you think is really valuable and would be better, would be great to share. Anything else, Jenny, while I'm
Well, so my intention is to put out a survey, because everybody loves a survey. But also, obviously, there's only sort of 12 of us here today, so I'm sure that there are more people who might have an interest in different types of CPD. At the moment, we're thinking about, what can we deliver online, given that kind of face-to-face CPD is not really an option, and also potentially because we might actually get a better uptake and more people able to attend if we try delivering online. So, there's an opportunity in that. Yeah, so I thought it would be useful to gather a few ideas from people who are here today, which I can add to other ideas that I've already got, and put out a survey hopefully within the next week or so, to see just kind of what's most popular, and also to try and gauge whether there are forms of sort of certain CPD sessions that we would need to or be willing to pay something towards doing, or whether what people feel that would be worth to do online. So the kind of ideas that are on the list so far, in no particular order, are possibly something around audio describing outdoor work, which was already on the cards prior to COVID, and we could kind of look into that again, as it seems like it might be quite relevant in the next year or so. Possibly something connected to these COVID safety guidelines, but I think that would be a bit further down the line once those are actually sort of published in an existing way. And also maybe some sessions around digital audio description, if we're right in Neil's prediction that there's going to be a lot more online work, then that might be where some of the opportunities are. So yeah, it would be interesting to hear if people have got specific thoughts about where they would like CPD within those categories, or additional things they would like that we can then put into the survey and see what would be popular among the membership. Jo, did you have your hand up?
Well, yes, it's the most obvious one that keeps coming up, and is a cause of personal frustration, in that it seems pretty clear that certainly for the short term, work opportunities are going to be online. I've had unsuccessful or unmotivated dips in the water with Stella and Reaper, and then most recently on Thursday, as Ruth knows, with the Amazon Workbench. And I'm afraid maybe it's old dogs, new tricks, but I would welcome some more training to have my hand held a little bit more through this. If nothing else, for sort of self-esteem. I haven't worked all year. If this is the way forward, I really think if we're all wanting to go forward together, then we need to support each other. We need to grab any kind of training that may be possible. I spoke to Matthew this morning, and he's really aware of this, and he's brilliant. He's on the case, is Matthew at Vocalize, and I would certainly recommend him, if you don't already know him, to team up with him, Jenny. And I think together and
yeah, I mean, this was one of the things I discussed with Neil, was being aware that Vocalize have already offered training in some of the things that we were looking at. I mean, from my perspective as someone who doesn't work with Vocalize, it's important that Ada is offering CPD that is open to all describers, but I certainly think it would be worth us talking with Matthew about what are the limitations of what Vocalize is offering, because there is that danger of kind of reinventing the wheel otherwise.
Absolutely. Well, his answer was that he is looking into investigating getting a package together, a grant package, to investigate where some funding could come from in order to bring us dinosaurs back, up into this post-COVID world where we can work, where we can survive, because at the moment less theatres go back, and it's wonderful, and it is happening, and that's it, isn't it? So
it's your
to push forward.
It's not just about saving and, you know, making use of the skills you've got, because there's so much online work now, and
Absolutely,
it's not been made accessible, and we have the skills to do that.
The users are there waiting for this in any form, and I have huge sympathies for them. And maybe, you know, Paula might want to make a comment about that. I mean, I would think that they, you know, we're doing it for them. How isolated are they feeling? How de-skilled are they when they're used to getting on a train, bus, and going to the theatre and having that lovely experience, and now suddenly there's this great stumbling block in their path that they've got a mountain to climb. I don't know. There are lots of questions, and we won't have all the answers. But you know, if we're to move forward together, and then we have got to take a big deep breath and kind of, which we are. You know, it's slowly happening. But I'm frustrated.
Hello,
Sorry,
Paula.
Jo.
We all, you know.
I think it's true that for people who find themselves suddenly not working, yes, that is a route forward that we need to investigate. But don't forget, there's hundreds and hundreds of visually impaired people who don't go to the theatre, who have access to streaming. And there's a huge audience that we've never touched, that we have recently touched through the few things like the National Theatre is the obvious one, that we can reach. So it's a permanent good idea, really, and a huge audience out there.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Jane. I think those, from a venue point of view, you know, the excitement about online is absolutely partly to reconnect with our audiences, you know, that we've always had a connection with, but it's so exciting about potential new audiences. And you know, for us, yeah, I don't know how many of you have been to Wolverhampton, but it's not the nicest place to be in after dark, if I'm brutally honest, and certainly with and will be less so, to be honest, post-COVID, because a lot of the nice places that there were to go and be in the evening in Wolverhampton have now closed. So you know, there's always been a bigger challenge of getting people into Wolverhampton, other than just, you know, giving them something they want to come and see. You've then got to persuade them to come into Wolverhampton after dark. I'm making it sound like the Wild West, but it is a little bit. So yeah, this new audience, you know, we're not spending best part of £40,000 installing this equipment on the intention that it will work for us for the next year and then we'll mothball it. It's part of our future planning, and being online and shows being available online is going to be part of our future, I think, permanently, and I think audiences will expect that as well. I think even myself, as a, you know, fairly vigorous theatre goer, if I can, you know, I am having those thoughts already about, well, I'd love to go and see that show, and it's in Bristol. Do I want to drive to Bristol, get a hotel, drive back, or oh, hold on, it's online, I can sit on the sofa with a bag of crisps and watch it? That's going to be really tempting, and you know, I think theatre is going to rely on that for a long time. So it's to kind of circle back to you, Jo, I think it is absolutely key that we provide support to audio describers to upskill, because it's going to be so much part of the future of audio description. So yeah, that feels really important.
And it can be done. I mean, Jo, I'm really sorry that you feel the way you do, but it can be done, this upskilling. It's not that difficult. It's not impossible. And I do absolutely get how you feel about it. I understand that. But, you know, it's not, bless you, it's not such an enormous thing to do. And that's not meant to, oh gosh, that's not meant to belittle what you're going through, because we're all going through versions of that, I think. But it is possible.
I agree with you. I feel really sorry that you feel that way, Jo, because I did. I was forced into doing something, and I thought, and I'm computer savvy, but there's a big difference between being computer savvy and then recording something on Reaper, learning how to edit it on Reaper, and then the difficulty with me is then rendering it and sending it to somebody. I found all the doing of it actually not bad at all, and I thought, oh, actually, I can do this. This is fine. How the hell do I send this file to the person who wants it? I tried all sorts of things, and in the end that was also simple. The delightful Gary said, oh, you idiot, this is what you do. Idiot in a nice way. But I was terrified, I will admit. And I'm not computer savvy. I use computers all the time. But it's a different thing when you're suddenly faced with a virtual sound desk, and you've got 3 or 4 columns here and 3 or 4 columns there and 4 or 5 boxes underneath, and you're typing in one and whoops, it appears in another one, and you think, oh, should I be typing in there? And I don't know it all like this, and I think this is a very, very common thing. And then all of a sudden, you know, you can do it, and then the worst thing happens. So you think, I can't do this. I just can't do this. And you get terrified all over again. But I'm sure, you know, I can remember being terrified the first time I did my first live audio. And I thought, you know,
Sure.
big pile of throat sweets and a gallon of water and all that sort of stuff. And then you become, dare I say it, almost blasé. You know, you're doing a show in the afternoon and dashing off to do an evening show somewhere else. When you were surprised you ever do one at all. I just rely on people who can do it. You know, at the moment I'm sitting very heavily on the shoulders of Anne because we're doing something together and she knows what she's doing. I hadn't a clue.
What I find very interesting about all of this is that it sounds like a lot of us have had very similar experiences, and I think a lot of us have piggybacked on each other, which is great, but also potentially excludes anyone who might be a member of ADA or not, but might feel that they don't have those direct ways in. It's, you know, it can be quite scary to ask for that help and to know who to ask. I suppose it makes it a little bit more challenging to know where to start with CPD, because everyone's obviously at slightly different levels. And I guess what we might need to offer is a combination of kind of formalized training, if we can find a way to structure that, but also just opportunities for kind of skill share, kind of trying to broker those relationships between people who have got a skill and people who need upskilling, because there's a huge amount of little things. It's like, you know, it might just be, oh god, I know how to do all of this, but I don't know how to render the file, or you know, I know this much, but I'm a bit too scared to take this job because I don't think I can turn it around in that time or whatever. So yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit of kind of testing the water to come up with a kind of package of what we can offer in terms of CPD, but it definitely sounds like digital should be a big area that we can focus on and that we could use this time for.
But we can all write a show, and I did my first one. I did all the writing, and putting the writing on Reaper, putting the script on Reaper was fine, and then I had somebody else to record it and edit it. So in that sense, Joe, you can start off by sharing something and doing the bits that you really can do and do well, and then gradually learning the bits that you're. But I agree with Jenny, and hats off to Jenny if she can sort this, because I think being trained so that we all feel absolutely competent in every aspect of this would be wonderful.
And also I think improving our ability and our networks for talking to each other, so that when because I don't think I will ever feel confident in absolutely everything that might be required for what I'm then asked to do, but it would just be great if there was somewhere I could go and say, oh, I've got this far and I'm stuck, please can someone help me. I know that we had a Slack group that started up over the summer, but it doesn't, from what I can see, it hasn't had a lot of uptake. Neil, is that what do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's still live and it's still there. I mean, like so many of those things, you know, they're based on how much they're used, and the more you use them, you know, the one that I have two basically on my desktop app. There's the one that we set up for Ada, and then there's the one we use to run the theatre with. And the one that we run the theatre with, which we set up in early March, is now getting up around 75,000 messages, because we use it as a chat function during the day, and we, you know, try and keep in touch with each other and trying to run a theatre through it. So yeah, it's still there, and it can be really useful, I think, you know, for people to share ideas. But if people aren't looking at it, the danger is that you know, the message drops in and it's a dead letterbox, you know, and nobody picks up on the other side. But it's certainly there if people need support. I know we've been having all sorts of problems with this Zoom room as well, but this Zoom room is always online as well. It's always available and open. And I know there's been some problems with logging into it, and Zoom keep changing things, which is difficult. So oh, is that me? No, there we go. So there's yeah, but I mean today like now. Yeah, they changed their rules. So now you need a password. But the password for this meeting is the password. So if you can always jump into here with somebody if you and this is a paid for room as well. So if you need to get 3 or 4 of you together for an hour or 40 minutes or more, this is a paid room and Ada are paying for it. So you might as well use it, because other than these sessions and our executive meetings, it's sitting idle most of the time. So that's there.
Well, I think maybe one thing that it's worth me asking people, if I do put a survey out, is, what skills in that kind of area can you offer? What, is there anything which you would either feel confident enough to do some training in, or just to be on a list of, people who can help with this if someone else really needs some help, so that we know we all know who we can ask about these things.
Yeah. I'll just sort of mention that I think with things like Reaper and this sort of software, I don't always think it's a question of being tech savvy. I think it's a question of learning a new language. I've been working in sound and audio for like all of my life, and it's something that I've kind of grown into, and I've learned as work in progress. It's something that the more you do it, it becomes like natural. It becomes something that you just understand. And I think that with especially Reaper, it's a very sort of complex language of coding and learning things you've never done before in a different sort of way. Like, I use about 3 or 4 different software packages around audio, and they're all completely different from one another. They all have completely different ways of actually doing things, and I think it's kind of, I think it's all to do with going at your own pace and doing what you're comfortable in. But I think it's what you said, Jenny. It's very important, I think, that when you struggle with something in that area, there is someone you can go to, and you can always be able to ask a question. I'm quite happy to help people with this, because it's my sort of forte. So people can always email me and ask me a question, and I'm happy to help with that. But I think if you're alone in it, it's, Joe, I think it's a lot more daunting.
I've had just one area. Reaper has been downloaded on my laptop, and that's it. And I open it and I look at it, and I'm just demotivated to. I don't know how to open it, how to get into it. I mean, sorry, this is a huge admission for all of you who are streets ahead.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think the learning is probably someone like Gary, who has set up the reef systems to simplify it for people like us who really don't understand it. But that kind of works best on a one-to-one basis.
That's what I've not had. So yeah. The assumption has been made that if you screen share, as happened with on Thursday or Friday, that you kind of get shown it, and then on you go on your own. I'm afraid I need
And none of us.
basics drummed in. Then I'll be away. That's all I'm saying.
I think it needs to be done slowly at your own pace. It's best done on an individual basis. And
Gary will do it. Yeah,
he'll do it, and he charges, I don't know, about £50 to train you, and then he is at every single project that you work on. He's there to help you to process it and to do things. But I mean, I know, like Nay said, you kind of think, yeah, I've got this, and then I edited one and it fucked up, to use nice language, all the other tracks. So there are always, I am not a sound engineer, I will never fully understand it. I click on some of these buttons and they come up with a whole load of so I don't know as much as, so we just need the sort of basic. But I think the sort of skill share that Jenny and other people are talking about, you know, if somebody got on the phone to me or sent me an email saying, I can't remember how to do this, I might be able to help them. So we have got all these different levels, and we're all there to help each other. And there are always going to be things that we can't do because we just don't know how to do that. And Gary, bless him, is brilliant, but he's not a natural teacher. And you ask him something, he says, oh, you don't need to know about that. And then that just freaks me out because I think,
yes, I do, or I wouldn't ask. No, he's great. He's great.
We can support each other because we're at different levels now.
But also, one of the
we'll help. Yeah.
One of the problems is that we're not doing it every day. So I might record something and then send it off and do something, and then I might not do another bit of digital work for 2 or 3 weeks. And you think, and I haven't been looking at Reaper in those 2 or 3 weeks, so you come back to it and you have to spend the first hour, you're relearning it to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I have myself a list of instructions. I mean, mine's on a Mac, so it's different to other people, but because there isn't a sort of training manual that comes with it, I think you have to do that for yourself because you forget in between projects.
Something else I'm wondering if potentially would be useful is if we were doing, you know, any kind of formalized online sessions, could we be recording them, or even could we be making, you know, short little video types of training that you can then refer back to? And that also means that, seeing as we are all at different levels, if anything we do like that is recorded, then that means different people can access it at different times, provided they know what to search for, which is the really hard thing, isn't it, especially when it's a piece of software that isn't originally built for audio description. The thing you want to do is probably called something completely different. But that's
when we were doing the Stellar training, Trish Hodson, who's another describer, a new describer but a very experienced trainer, she distilled all the information really well, and it was that ability as a trainer to put it into a form that we could all use. Perhaps we need to get her on board for Reaper.
I was going to say, is she a member of ADA? Because we need to persuade her. Because she's extraordinarily good at that sort of thing and such a lovely person. But I mean, Gary is wonderful. He really is wonderful, and he's helped me through a couple of projects, and he's always available at the end of the phone because he's stuck in Guernsey and he's happy to do these things. But I don't think we should ever only have one string to a bow. No. And I personally think we should all learn. I agree with Anne's frustration when you ask, how do I do this? Oh, don't worry about that. Well, at the time, perhaps I didn't worry about it because I was much more concerned about getting it done on time. But in actual fact, I still wanted to know. I can't remember what it was I didn't know how to do, but I still want to know how to do it. And I think we all need to know not only how to do it, but why we do it. So, because if you know why you're doing something, you're more likely to remember it. And I think, you know, the fact that Tim says this is his life, you know, he knows a good deal about this as well. I think it's good to have more than one person who is helping us with Reaper or who we can go to, because you can't just have somebody like Gary, excellent as he is, because something may happen to Gary. He may move on, or he may get a different, you know, you can't just have one person who is the go-to person. We need several people with the same sort of expertise to be able to help
The one thing I will advise is there are some really good training videos on YouTube that already exist
About Reaper.
around
Yeah.
Well,
Reaper.
okay, I tried to do, all I got was a sound system, how to make your own music, you know, for a band and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And
I found 3 or 4, so I could send you the links for
Could you
those.
send
Oh,
them
yeah.
out, Tim?
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
be
yeah,
so helpful.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, they're all around the sort of basics of Reaper, but they give you a little bit more sort of confidence in approaching it.
Yep.
You know, I think that a lot of feedback I've had around Reaper, and I've got it installed on my computer, is that when you first open that screen, it's very daunting because it's like almost like nothing jumps out at you and says, where am I going next? What do I need to do? You need the knowledge of where to go and what to do and what to input and, you know, all of these sort of things. And it is very daunting for people who've never done that before.
I'd quite like a booklet. I'd like a written instructions, please.
Yes, I would.
That would work.
A step by step.
Yeah, for
I wonder
morons.
See, I'm sure that something along those lines could actually be produced, because I've helped people produce things around those sort of lines for other software like Adobe Audition and things like that. So something along those sort of lines could be done for Reaper.
We need an idiot guy. And I'm not, we're not idiots.
It feels so much better because
We're not sort of expert in. We're expert in what we do. And we're trying to do something different.
Yeah.
The other, the couple of things that I think worth just highlighting, and I've had very good experiences with them, but not specifically related to this part of the world. But the tech champions that the Arts Council have on their team have been really, really good over the last few months with helping with different bits and pieces of our restart. So the Arts Council launched something called the Digital Culture Network. It's probably a couple of years ago now. And then they have, there's about 7 or 8 of them, I think, on salary at the Arts Council called Tech Champions. And they're good at the big stuff. You know, I went to them and said, right, we got all this equipment, but I now need to get it to my customers. How do I do that bit? Because we could answer all the internal questions, we just couldn't answer the external questions. But also on more kind of immediate things like, how do we do this? And I know at the moment there's a kind of push amongst the relationship managers to get them more involved with people. So whether that, it may be that it's appropriate for Ada to make a direct approach actually and say, as an organization, you know, our members could do with some help here around you know, software, and there's a potential base they can have a look. And they are, as I say, they've been really good on that side for us. And then, yeah, I think, as you say, you know, those kind of, that it's that sharing, isn't it, of best practice, you know, YouTube videos that are useful. And again, it kind of relies on a, I think what you were saying, Joe, it's a sort of a general digital literacy in a certain area.
Yeah.
So similar to Tim, I've spent the last 20 years editing sound and video and you know, sending big files around the world to different people. So none of that is, I don't give it a second thought. But I'm sure if you were to show me Reaper or Stella as well, the first thing I'd do is go, well, how the hell does this work? And first thing I would do is, as I do with pretty much everything I don't know how to do on the computer, I go to YouTube and watch a video. But it's knowing where those resources are and knowing where to find the useful things. So I think there's something we can do to sort of assist in that way as well, and bring those things together. Because yes, it feels like we've got, collectively, we can pretty much ace this system, but we need all of us to make it work. Which is the same with, you know, it's still the same. I've like I say, 20 years video editing. There are still things I don't know how to do, but I know who the 3 people who I'm friends with who will know the answer. And so it's building those connections and those communities, isn't it? So that that we know, well, actually, you know, Gary's been mentioned 1,000 times, but actually, you know, who's Gary trained, and therefore who else might be able to answer that question in you know, in short order. And sometimes it is just, where's that button gone? Where, I know it's here somewhere, and either they've moved it or I've just forgotten, and I can't remember which sub menu of a sub menu it's hidden in. So yeah, I think we can certainly say hello, Roz.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, Roz.
It's the last 20 minutes or so of you.
It's okay.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's obviously, it's very clear that digital skills are right up the top of the list for CPD. Is there anything else that I mean, personally, that I'm all for that because I'm stuck shielding until forever. But is there anything apart from digital skills that anybody, particularly activists or CPD, that we could be doing, which could be delivered digitally, but not necessarily focused on digital?
Possibly we could put our heads together about how to run safe touch tours.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be potentially, Neil, connected to the guidelines that you and Matthew and Michael are going to be working on, wouldn't it? So
yeah, I hope so. I think that's on the agenda.
Doing, once those are published, a sort of session focused on the actual content of them, and also maybe working with whichever describers are actually out there doing it. To
And did you do a touch tour for your recent one? No. The National Theatre are doing their touch tour, and I think it's the 5th of November. I've covered this.
I asked Willie Ross. I had a chat with Willie.
Oh, good.
And he is not entirely certain at the moment. It's in the hands of Miranda and somebody at the Almeida. They're discussing it.
So this is the NT.
Yeah, I know. But you said it's sort of kind of going round in a circle of who's doing things first and who's getting the experience first. But what came out of it for me was that it seems to very much depend, because the Almeida, it's in the round anyway, and it's a different thing to a thrust, you know, all different stages, and therefore that will have a big impact on what you can or cannot do. But they were saying things like they will have separate bags, and in those bags, which will be given to each patron, there will be selection samples of the materials of the costumes, that sort of thing, which is that very much depends how used the costume department are to being involved in things like this, or whether it's a tour. You know, theatres I work in, you have tours, they don't have swatches of cloth because they're not the original makers, and also replica props and props that can be easily sanitized.
Yeah.
These are the things they're still discussing, and I'm assuming, because Willie's going to be up and running PDQ,
pretty soon,
that these things will be finalized, but nobody seems to have any definitive ideas. My concern was how you actually, if you do get patrons, because we're going to be doing it on the 1st of December, if you do get patrons, I'm concerned as how you actually get them into the theatre if they need assistance. If they don't come with a carer who's in their bubble, how do you get them into the theatre? Who's going to assist them to do that?
I mean, a couple of people have said, a couple of visually impaired people have suggested using straps. They're using straps at the moment in order to be guided around.
Yeah.
So I think it's the answers are coming from the visually impaired people, really.
Yes, I'm sure. And we don't know yet how many will feel comfortable enough and
we don't
to do it, because they have no concept of. It's not that they don't have any concept of 2 meters. It's just that if they can't see somebody, they don't know whether they're 2 inches or 2 meters or 20 feet away.
Yeah, they really rely on other people to be sensible, don't they?
Right. We suggested, Kate and I suggested to Curve certainly that all their visually impaired patrons, if they came, should come in 20 minutes before everybody else, because everybody's on a timed ticket to come in, and that the visually impaired should be in and seated before the rest of the audience come. That's kind of as far as we got. So it's still all that seems to be very much in the air. Maybe we'll know more when somebody's actually done it. You didn't do a touch tour, did you, Anne?
No. It was just, I had said, is there any way around it? But in the end, they said they weren't going to do it. And it was
there is always going to be a way to provide the information a different way.
Yeah.
You know, it really, to say there's no way of doing a touch tour and then just say, so that's it, throw up your hands. There's always going to be a way, isn't there?
Really, there wasn't a set, there wasn't, the only thing there was the slash and remind.
Oh, well, that's a bit different, isn't it?
There wasn't a need, really. I mean, the only thing, it would have been nice to feel the fabric of the dresses, but one was in sequins and one was in velvet. So I wore sequins and velvet, and that was my way around it.
Yeah.
Speaking to the community and getting feedback, I always find that what they get the most out of a touch tour is the ability to ask questions and the ability to have the questions about that production answered. And I think if that can be incorporated into a new sort of touch tour, I think quite a lot of people, especially in the current climate, would be happy with that.
And that's quite easy to do.
Yeah.
Because once they're in the auditorium and nobody else is, you can go and you can talk to them, you know, at a socially distant, appropriate distance.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. It's all the bits and bobs that are a problem.
Yeah, and I actually think that quite a lot of people would be happy not to touch things if they can have that interaction, if they're able to ask questions and have those questions answered. You know,
there's going to be many things to touch, Tim, because
well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah,
the actors can't have dresses, therefore they can't have more costumes or more complicated costumes than they can get in and out of themselves, because they can't have anybody dress them like they would normally do. So everything is being reduced as much as possible.
How do you feel about it, Paula? How do you feel about touch tours?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I had such a struggle to join this meeting.
Right, okay, I can hear you.
My internet went down at about 3 minutes past 1, and so I had to download Zoom on my phone, and I've joined on my phone on my mobile data eventually, and I can totally sympathise with Jo, because it makes me want to cry as soon as something doesn't work. That's it. So yes, but I'm here. I managed it all by myself. So anyway, yes, I'm a big fan of touch tours. I think they're one of the favourite bits of everybody as an individual, and you know, I just love being kind of immersed on the stage and you know, feeling the way that it's set up, and I love all of that. What I would say is, you know, anything is better than not having a touch tour. So if I've got something rather than absolutely nothing, you know, this world's full of compromises at the moment, and you know, if it is you know, listen to a good description prior to the performance, or you know, being able to ask questions, and you know, if some actors were able to turn up and you could listen to their voices beforehand and all that sort of thing. I mean, it is certainly a lot better than not having that, isn't it? You know, it is certainly, to me, being able to go to the theatre again. I'm Milton Keynes Theatre's not open, but as far as I know, it isn't. So I don't have that that pleasure at the moment. But you know, I am looking forward to the day when I can go and get immersed in, you know, being part of an audience and being part of a performance, really, isn't it? You know, as an audience member, you're part of the whole thing, and it's very different to having a streamed performance. And I know what Neil's saying about, you know, well, this is how the future's going to be, and it partly will be like that. I understand that, and yes, it does give you the opportunity to join in a performance in Edinburgh or Cornwall or somewhere, you know, just places that you couldn't get to easily, and it would cost you a fortune, and you'd have to stay overnight. And sorry, my husband's talking in the background, so I'm losing my thread. Yeah, I understand that is a thing that's just going to have to happen. But you know, to me, there's nothing compares to the live experience, and I don't think anything will really compare to the old touch tour where you could feel the costumes, and you know, you could even touch the actors and touch the ballet dancers and all that stuff, you know, feel the muscles, and it's not going to be the same until we do that. But you know, have compromises, and I'm happy with what I get now. I'm happy. You know, anything makes me happy now. Sorry, I've waffled.
Well said, well said.
We have spent years as audio describers having to work touch tours around all sorts of different situations, haven't we? I mean, it's no touch to going around the country. No touch tour has ever been quite straightforward, and we have had a lot of experience of trying to make things work. So I'm sure we can make this work.
Yes, I'd agree with that, Julia. I think in some ways it may be even easier, because I think things are under such control. I know certainly with there's bits of our operation that we're already looking at, oh, that's going to make that a lot easier because we can just say that. That's nice. So there will be areas where things will improve, I'm sure. Yeah, once we've worked out how to get 75 kids backstage for a dance show, that's the biggest one. That's the one that's keeping me awake at night. Yeah, small groups. So, does that give us a good sample, Jenny? For
Yeah, great. Lots of food for thought. Yeah, I'll try and get a survey out in the next week or so. There's definitely quite a lot of questions, especially around digital and kind of what's actually the most useful thing we can do to help people with those skills. So I'll try and get some of those into a survey and get it out soon so we can start putting some plans together. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, just wondered, just while it's in my head, and I know Mary sent it out on a notepad last week, but the Creative Europe project we're currently part of is running a program around, it's sort of an introduction to audio description. So it's not for audio describers, but it is for people who would like to know more about how it works and how it, you know, how you go about putting it onto shows. And I'm just very aware at the moment, and it's a conversation we've had in the groups while we've been putting this program together. We know that a lot of venues have made their access people redundant and have, you know, or have given them 18 other responsibilities, so that access is kind of part of a much broader portfolio now. And we know we're starting to, places starting to open again, teams are starting to look like they might look for the next couple of years. It's just to sort of say, if you do know of places like that where you think somebody might benefit from it, it's free to attend. Unfortunately, had it not been for COVID, it would have been free to attend for 4 days on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, which would have been beautiful. And I was supposed to be going as well. Very upset. So it's now 4 days in, or wherever it is, how many days it is now, in your back bedroom staring into a computer. But maybe you could put a background of the Amalfi Coast behind you and, you know, a heat lamp and feel a bit better about it. But it's free to attend, and it's been run by Valeria Illuminati from University of Bologna. And I don't know how many of you know of their work. But University of Bologna are the first university in the world to put in a master's program around audio description of all sorts of things, film and television and theatre and whatever, and they've led with us on a few projects over the last couple of years. Valeria is really good. She really knows her stuff. She has a PhD in descriptive services, so she's really top notch, and she's running the course. So yes, unfortunately we can't offer an all expenses paid trip to the Amalfi Coast, but we can still offer the course, which is the reason for going there in the first place. So excellent, Anne, thank you so much. That's brilliant. Yes, that's the spirit. So I might just
on the coast. Oh, it's beautiful.
There you go, perfect. Yeah, just get the local Italian restaurant on Just Eat, and we're practically there.
Paula, just the background of a lovely sort of coastal beach with the waves lapping
Oh, yeah.
against the sand.
It's such a shame, because we've got 3 Creative Europe projects on the go at the moment, and they're always a huge amount of work. They're always very rewarding, but they are always a huge amount of work. But often that work is offset about the fact that you get to travel around Europe and go to all these fantastic places. And so we've just been left with the work and not getting to see these far-flung corners of Europe. But never mind, we'll hopefully before the end of the project, it's due to run until 2023. I might get my trip to Italy, but we never know.
Yeah.
Great. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to go on, Anne? Sorry.
As long as you take all of us.
Yes. Well, you know, would have been a great opportunity. You never know what's coming next. These Creative
Jenny,
Europe projects
in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. These
That'll
Creative
come on
Europe
there.
projects.
How much would you be willing to pay for
I think it would, yeah.
Yeah, these Creative Europe projects always tend to do very well if they're around access. So in fact, I think we've done 7 in the last 5 years, and 6 of them have been access related. So there's always those out and about, and we've been assured by the European Commission and by the British Council that we will still be able to partake even post January the 1st. So that's still good news. We'll be able to keep sharing the love around Europe. So that's all good. Was there anything else anyone wanted to raise while we were here? That's gathered.
Is it possible just for everybody to say hello, in case not everybody knows who everyone is? I know it's the end of the meeting, but just so sort of where people are based and things.
A good idea. I'm aware we've been joined by Megan from the US.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello.
Yes. Shall I orchestrate this, because I know everyone has a different array of boxes. So we'll start with you, Jenny. You're in my top left corner.
Oh, not in my top left corner. Hello, I'm Jenny. I am usually based in London, but for the last 4 months I have been in Suffolk, escaping shielding in a tiny flat, and instead embracing the countryside and the mud of Suffolk. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
I'm Neil. I'm chair of the Audio Description Association currently. I'm also artistic director at the Arena Theatre in Wolverhampton. When I can get in, that's it there. Julia?
Yeah, I'm a freelance describer for work for Vocalise and the RSC in Stratford. I'm based in the Midlands, and that's where I've been for a while now, but I am luckily able to travel around a bit, but in a fairly small radius at the moment. But yeah, I'll work for anyone. That's it.
Ruth?
Hiya, I'm Ruth, and I'm based in London, and like Julia, I'll work for anyone. I'm not proud. And I'm just starting to get to grips with this new workbench thing. I love Reaper, but that's because Gary's there holding your hand, as everyone says. I'm just getting to grips with Workbench, and yeah, you're not alone, Joe. It is a bit, whoa, okay. But it's not impossible. You just have to be gentle with yourself, and just as it moves you out of one box and you're meant to be in that box, then you're in. It's possible. It's all possible.
Oh, my system's going to go slow. So Megan.
Got magnet on my.
Yes, hello. I am in the US, in the Midwest near St. Louis. As usual, I am. This is very interesting to me because I'm really happy for all of you that you are coming out of your. We are worse. The US we had our highest COVID rates ever this week in hospitalizations and deaths, and we're shutting back down completely. Broadway is closed completely through May. So we're doing nothing. So I'm doing a lot of virtual stuff, or trying to do virtual stuff. So that's America. And in 8 days, we have an election. This is normally when I say on a Zoom call, everybody vote. Did you vote yet? So everyone just cross your fingers for us that something changes soon.
Anne.
Hello. I'm on a beach in my dream, not in tier 3 lockdown in Bolton. But the good news is, as we were saying before, that I did do a live show the other night, and I had a customer. Got another 3 booked there, and quite a few Christmas shows booked up. We were saying it doesn't make any sense. We've gone into tier 3. The infection rates are rising. The hospitals are full, but the theatres are still at the moment allowed to be open. It was really strange having the audience so spaced out. I think it's a third capacity. So there'd be 2 seats and then 5 seats and then 1 seat and then 5 seats and then 3. And there'd be rows with nobody. And it was so strange for the actors looking out to this strange populace of masked faces. But yeah, it did go ahead. And so, yeah, just waiting to see what else will happen. Other good news, 2 galleries and museums that I work with regularly who haven't done online stuff before, we're putting their exhibitions online with description. So as we've all been saying, I think that is the way forward. And it's good that that's starting to happen. Thank you.
Joe?
Hello, I'm calling from my lovely boot room in South Oxfordshire at the foot of the Chiltern Hills, where the colours are glorious, so I can always dog walk for a bit of fresh air. I'm going to be editing Northern Ballet's production of something coming up. I didn't feel confident to write it, so that's really great. I've got a piece of work coming up, and thank you for your encouragement. We will be okay. We'll be okay.
Tracy?
Look forward to seeing everybody in the flesh.
It's too much for Tim, more or less.
Are you back from your Greek holiday, Tim?
Yes, I'm back from Greek. But I was only there for 4 days, but it was very nice. But it was like pure escapism because it was so. We were in Rhodes, and it was incredibly relaxed over there. And it was only when we actually went on a boat that we actually felt there was a pandemic going on, where you had to fill in all these forms and wear your face masks. It was incredibly sort of relaxed in the hotel, and the weather was sort of glorious, and that was nice. And it was even quite nice on the plane. It was spaced out, and there weren't too many people on there, and everyone was behaved and wearing their face masks. And yes, so that was. I was expecting complete opposites, so it was quite a nice experience. I'm currently in Crawley, but I'm off to Stoke in a couple of days. So I'm going to be in Stoke for a week because I've got some work in Stoke, and then I'm probably back to Crawley. And if people don't know already, I'm an access consultant. I'm the vice chair and also communication lead for Audio Description Association. I'm also an audio producer as well, so I produce quite a lot of audio.
Thanks, Tim. Tracy?
Thank you. So I'm Tracy. I'm head of HR and admin at the New Vic Theatre in Stoke-on-Trent, or Newcastle-under-Lyme, which is in Staffordshire. We had a big auditorium refurbishment over the summer, which is all completed. Yes, don't ever refurbish an auditorium during the middle of COVID. That's a nightmare, but we did it. We succeeded. We've opened back up to the public. We've had our first live performances as well. So they're going really well, and obviously now we're looking at our season going through to Christmas. But yeah, today I'm having discussions with our production team in terms of how could our Christmas show audio described, because it's going to be partially outdoors and partially indoors, so that's going to be some new challenges for us. We're also looking at digital work as well, so it's a whole new field for us, but very challenging, but very, very exciting times. So yeah, no, we're really looking positive at the moment.
Excellent, Tracy. I thought I recognised that brick meets polystyrene tiles behind you. I thought that's got to be the New Vic. That looks so much like backstage at the New Vic.
That's us.
Great stuff. Jane.
Oh, I'm an audio describer. Like all the other audio describers, I'll work for absolutely anybody, anything at the moment. I'm at the moment I'm amusing myself building a box which will enclose me and my microphone and is lined with towels. My good Lord, I know why towels stop sound. But I ever tried to stitch any? They're incredibly thick, incredibly muffly. So I propose to go back to Gary, and he'll either roar with laughter or tell me it's better. But I'm enjoying getting to grips with all this digital stuff. I'm enjoying hearing all the stories of the theatres that are being so creative at the moment. And I know it's not what we were used to, but I think it's a triumph that people are getting out there and finding ways round the many barriers that everybody faces. So well done, everybody.
Well said, Jane. Well said.
Yeah,
Nay, how you doing?
I'm Nay, and I'm in Leicester, and I've been shielding for 7.5 months. So I have, I'm getting used to it now. I feel less of a pariah now that other counties have joined us. It's been a strange and difficult time, personal time. I'm an audio describer, and like everybody else, I'm a tart. I'll work for anyone. I think we're all a bit like that. And over the last few weeks, I've really enjoyed getting to grips with digital and a microphone and an interface and all this sort of stuff, and building my little box, which has got to be soundproof before the 3rd of November. I didn't find it easy, Joe, at all, but I have enjoyed doing it because I haven't had anything else to do, and it's kept me in touch with everyone, and everyone has been, I must say, quite extraordinarily supportive in the difficult time that I have personally faced. And now I have to face another challenge because Curve in Leicester is opening, and they have been in touch with us, and we've had some Zoom meetings, which has been lovely. The things that Jane was saying about things changing, people embracing new ways. Normally, we've just had an invitation to quote from a theatre or whatever, and you do that. And so now it's an invitation to a Zoom. So you actually get to talk to people who, in a previous world, you've spent months trying to find out who they were, where they were, and who's the one to talk to. And now here they are all together in a meeting, and you can have a really constructive time and a fun time. We've had some laughs. So we're about to do that. I don't know yet whether I will be allowed to go into the theatre. That's still up for discussion. But I can still do the work. And if my colleague Kate has to be the one who goes into the theatre, she's happy to do that. She will go into the theatre and deliver. But I'm hoping that their situation will be that I can actually go back into the theatre. That would be lovely. But I will be terrified. I've been into one shop in 8 months, and I shook. I absolutely shook, and you know, that's a sign of you don't realise how much it affects you. But having been in a small flat, you know, a number of you have said you're in a small enclosed space or whatever, but for nearly 8 months now, it's a long, long time. And we've been forgotten in Leicester. We never came out of lockdown. Well, for 2 days, you know, we never came out of lockdown. And it's like people have forgotten that we exist and we're still in lockdown. So, you know, it's been a strange old year. But I'm back, I'm working, and I can at least, even if I don't get out there, I will be writing a show, possibly recording a bit, and doing something. And I've got 3 shows booked, 2 over Christmas and 1 in January. So better than it was.
Great news, Nate. Great news. And yes, I've got a lot of colleagues in Leicester. We do a lot of work over there from the arena, and yeah, it's really it's appalling what's happened really to the city. And but good news that the work's coming back, and hopefully the investment in Curve and the Little and other places will help that. The Y got a big slab of cash as well, so let's hope there's more activity on its way.
But it's opening up because it's got 2 sisters, but it was built in the sense that they can be opened and the whole place can be open. And Cameron McIntosh has lent us a revolve so that the stage will be a huge revolve in the centre, and they will open up the entire complex so that you've got the main house, which has about 2,000 people, and then the studio, which has about 1,000, and then there'll be seats around the side. And so they can seat about 500 or 600 by opening the whole thing up, which makes it worthwhile opening it up, because they can have the numbers, and because it's a circular building, they've got a brilliant one-way system in and out. So hopefully it will be very interesting, and I hope I get to see it. I may not. I may only be sitting on the end of a laptop in my little cupboard. But it's something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Curve is an incredible piece of architecture, and yeah, if you've ever been in when the walls are up, it's stunning.
Yeah. It's a really, Marmite theatre.
Well, yes, absolutely. So are some of the people that write. But yeah, it is a phenomenon. Who knew how prescient that kind of architecture would be? Which leaves us with Roz. Round us out, Roz.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like some of you. I haven't got any live work. There's been some openings in some of the theatres I work with, but I haven't been able to get down there. So I'm really going to be stuck with digital. Well, not stuck with. I'm going to be on digital for a while. We're doing Christmas Carol at the Old Vic on Zoom, which is going to be quite a challenge because we've done 3 shows there on Zoom, and they've all by and large been monologues. And of course, Christmas Carol is a lot bigger than that. I'm not quite sure how it's going to be blocked, how it's going to be worked yet, but it is going to be a much more all-encompassing show. So we're going to see how Zoom works on that. Otherwise, it's been great. I've been talking to people, to describers in South Korea and Hong Kong and Adelaide and Victoria and America, and you know, it's sort of the good thing about this is that there are no boundaries anymore. So we are able to cross-fertilize between each other, and you know, in some cases sympathize because people are running out of money in a big way. A lot of people don't have money coming in, and they constantly have to fund to keep their operations going, and that's been hard for them. But all you see is this will to keep going, and this will to, as you say, adapt and find different ways of doing things, and talk to the audience and find out what the audience is prepared to put up with, and what the audience is willing to add to this. So you know, it's not all doom and gloom. It really isn't. Certainly at the Old Vic, they say they can't open until they can be fairly guaranteed of 70%. That's not going to be for a long time yet. But the National's opening for a while. I can't get down for the first 2, but hopefully I'll be able to come back with some of the others. I hope so. So meanwhile, like some of us here, I'm on Workbench. I'm working with Veronica Hicks. Thank God for Veronica Hicks, who has taken quite a lot of us on to do the Amazon work. And I should, those of you who are working on Workbench, I've put a document to them, just giving some of the information from the questions that people keep asking, because they've been training batches of people, and as we find out more, we're adding more and more information to the documents that are going to be released. So things will be easier, and there are easy ways to make boxes, honestly, they really are. So it's not as bad as it looks.
Good news. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been a treat as always. We'll see you, I suppose, for one more this side of Christmas. We party hats optional, I think. We'll see how we're feeling at that point. As always, it's great to hear. It's always great to hear from you all, but it's great to hear about those particular examples of work starting up again and things starting to show some green shoots. And certainly from for a venue point of view, you know, we're working really hard to get back to some sense of normality, and it sounds like that's the case around the country. So that's really, really great. And yeah, I'm very excited to get up to the new Vic and see what you've done with the auditorium, because it looks great from the photos. So I might try and stray up if there's stuff going on around Christmas time.
Very good.
Yeah, it's well, it's about 25 minutes away from here, so so that may be on the list this side of Christmas. Jenny, as I say, we'll be in touch with a survey in the next a couple of weeks or so, and then we'll keep pushing on and try and support as best you can. And as always, love, solidarity, and support. If you need it, just shout, and we'll do what we can. And we'll see you all in the not too distant future. Tim, are you going to stay on this room? Because we're going to have a chat afterwards. Yeah. So we'll say goodbye to the rest of the folks, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so
Much
much.
love. Take care. No problem. Pleasure as always.
Thank you.